Apple's WWDC that was held this year had a lot of stuff to talk about, so in this video, I'm going to be sharing my thoughts. There was a lot that was talked about at this event. When it came to new hardware, there was a lot of new software, and ultimately at the very end, you had the Apple Vision Pro that was unveiled, and basically was the event. So what happened first in the event was that we got new hardware, and we actually got a 15-inch MacBook Air. Now, to me, that's not something that I would personally buy, but I definitely do see the demographic, and for $1,300, it ain't bad at all. Sporting the same M2 chip as the 13-inch model, it honestly seems like a really good laptop, especially if you don't want to go pro and get a bigger MacBook Pro, which would be a lot more than that. Ultimately, I think the 15-inch MacBook Air was a great move from Apple, and I can see a lot of people buying it. Now, we also got some more updated components, like the Mac Studio got the M2 chip, there wasn't a whole lot to see there, and the Mac Pro actually got updated with Apple Silicon, which now makes the transition process complete. Every Mac that is being sold has Apple Silicon now, so Intel can officially be fully phased out. Unfortunately, the Mac Pro came out like a year after they said the transition would end, so they were a little late on that one, but whatever, what can you do, really? So now let's go into a lot more of my personal thoughts with iOS 17, iPadOS 17, watchOS 10, and macOS 14. So with iOS 17, they actually added a decent amount of features. When you get a call from someone, you can customize what their card looks like, and honestly, I think that's a really cool feature. Do I need it? No, not at all. Most of my contacts don't even have pictures in them, and the ones that do, I don't know, I don't need to set this up, but it's nice to have. They also improved AirDrop in a lot of ways, actually. So let's say you AirDrop something to someone else and you stepped away for a little bit. It usually would fail because you were too far away from the person. AirDrop has a range because it does it based on a peer-to-peer connection. iOS 17 is actually going to change that, so AirDrop will now be using the internet instead of using peer-to-peer when your devices aren't close together. And name drop is now a thing, so you can AirDrop people your contacts without having to type in your number or anything. You just bring two iPhones close together, and bam, you immediately have their contact right on your phone. I think that's really cool. iPadOS 17 has a lot of features that I really wanted iPad to get, and honestly, it should have gotten an iPadOS 16, and that was lock screen customizations are now a thing on iPadOS, and are done in a pretty nice way. You can change the clock font, and you can change the complication that shows up in the date, and now on the side, you have a widget bar instead of being under the clock, which I think is a better way of doing it, because you can actually fit a lot of widgets in there. And you can fit bigger ones as well that you can't fit on the iPhone. So I think that for me was the most notable feature in iPadOS 17. And another one was external webcam support, but it only works in FaceTime from what I'm seeing. You can't use the camera app or anything like that to record it. Third-party apps can't see it either, which makes the feature really useless to me. Well, I guess we can take our wins where we get them, but iPadOS 17 really didn't add much more than what iOS 17 brought. There's really not been much. I think there were some Stage Manager improvements, but for me that doesn't affect me at all because I use an iPad 10 and it doesn't support those anyways. Moving right along, let's go over to macOS 14. Now this update actually looked fairly minor as well, though the name Sonoma is actually very interesting to me because it reminds me of like Windows XP. And now you can actually move widgets on top of your desktop instead of them just being confined in the little bar area there. Will I use that? I don't know. I'm definitely going to be using the new widgets that they added, and now that they've added continuity with widgets, so like if I have a widget that's on my iPhone, I can seamlessly move that over to my Mac, which is going to be awesome to have that feature. I have no clue how that's going to work with older versions of iOS and iPadOS. Like, let's say you have an iPhone that's stuck on iOS 16. I will get to that in a bit. If you can still use that feature on macOS, I don't think you'll be able to. And that's really the only notable thing for me that I saw with macOS. I'm sure there was more, but that's really all that's the real main takeaway that I got from macOS was just that. And finally, watchOS 10, which now that I've actually been seeing watchOS 10 for the first time, and I've seen like, okay, yeah, this is going to be a huge update. Now I really do want to upgrade from my Series 3 because I want to take advantage of these new features. It's basically redesigning the entire operating system, which honestly, I really like that. They're changing the honeycomb layout for the home screen, I think, to be like scrollable, which I'm not a big fan of that because on my Series 3, the app layout that I have would not be at all compatible with the way that is set up, so I'd have to adjust. That wouldn't be hard, but it's still annoying. But yeah, Control Center has been moved to the side button. It looks like as well that a lot of apps have gotten updates. The weather app on watchOS now looks very similar to the one that came on iOS 15, and macOS's OSs and iPad OSs, whether they came in iPad OS 16 and Mac OS 13 Ventura. I personally liked some of the older designs though, because Apple Watches have OLED displays, and if the information can be put in a way where it wouldn't cause a lot of burn-in, I think that'd be nice. It's actually one of the reasons why I use the modular watch face on my Apple Watch, because most of it's black. So not only does it just save battery because most of the pixels are turned off, but it also prevents screen burn-in because the screen is just used less. So I'm really happy to see when I get a new Apple Watch, just like how much it's going to change my experience with the Apple Watch. Unfortunately, I have a Series 3. I haven't upgraded since WatchOS 9 came out, so this thing's still rocking on WatchOS 8. But WatchOS 9 was a really small update that it just wasn't worth buying a new watch just to experience the little things. So WatchOS 10 now actually has a lot of features that I think would make the Apple Watch a lot better of an experience for me, and it's making me want to actually get a new Apple Watch. So go on, new Apple, your software is actually really good with the Apple Watch. Now let's get to the sad parts, and that is the devices that were killed off. So with macOS, it's pretty bog standard. 2017 Macs were basically just axed, except for the 2017 iMac Pro. That will be getting macOS Sonoma, which, good on you, Apple, for supporting that thing longer. It's a beast of a machine, so it absolutely should be able to run Sonoma. On the watch side, every single watch that can run watchOS 9 can run watchOS 10, which is really cool to see that the Series 4, of all things, is actually going to be getting this massive update. Even if it is the last update for the watch, I think that's actually going to be a great stopping point for that watch. I don't honestly think it will be, because the Series 4 was way more powerful than the Series 3, and so I wouldn't be surprised if it gets watchOS 11, but we'll see when that actually happens. Now, on the iPhone and iPad side of things, iPads made sense to me. We lost the 5th gen iPad, and we lost the original iPad Pros. These both had A9 and A9X chips, and these devices were, honestly, from what I heard, were pretty darn slow on iPadOS 16. They weren't unbearably slow, but they weren't great either. The one thing that I'm concerned about with those devices is that there is a bug currently with iPadOS 16. I filed a bug report, and it doesn't seem like Apple knows about it because we're on 16.5 and it still hasn't been fixed, where if you try to clear a notification with the Apple Pencil, it simply just opens notes. I've experienced this myself. One of my friends on Discord has also experienced this. I have no clue why it happens, but it does. Yeah, that's the thing. Please, Apple, fix it before you kill off these devices. Finally, on the iPhone side of things, we actually lost a pretty influential device this update, since the iPhone 10 will not be getting iOS 17, along with the 8 and 8 Plus, but those devices aren't really special. So, yeah, the iPhone 10, it's honestly, for me, even though I don't own an iPhone 10, it's a hard pill for me to swallow, because, one, iOS 17 is not a big update, so I absolutely think it could have run it, but two, yeah, it's kind of a shame. iOS 16, I would say, would be a decent stopping point for the device, as long as it wasn't so buggy. So hopefully they'll continue to release dot updates and make sure that iOS 16 will actually be a stable experience for those devices. But yeah, iOS 16 was actually a pretty big update. It actually added the battery percentage to the iPhone 10, so small little W there that the iPhone 10 got that before it was killed off. The iPhone 10 also got the customizable lock screen, though I think in iOS 17 it's a little more refined. So you still have that. You have the lock screen widgets because iOS 16 had those. So iOS 17, honestly, if you're going to be wanting to buy a new phone because you have an iPhone 10 and you see that, oh, this phone will run iOS 17, so I should get a new phone, I would advise against it, because the iPhone 10 is still a great device unless there's really stuff on iOS 17 that you want, which there's not a whole lot in my opinion. So yeah, we're losing a pretty influential device with this next update, since the iPhone 10 added Face ID, and it obviously gave us the modern design that iPhones still have to this day. Yeah, rest in peace, iPhone 10. You'll be missed. One more thing that I'll be talking about is the Apple Vision Pro. Now, I actually kind of zoned out when watching the keynote at this part. Yeah, Apple released a new headset, and it's an AR/VR headset with 2 hours of battery life, I think, and it's $3,500. Yeah, that's a lot, and that's a very hard pill to swallow for something that I honestly don't think is going to be the next big thing. Yeah, this did not go over well with me. So yeah, the headset is basically like an iPad or an iPhone or something like that, where instead of just using a device in your hand, you can do everything, but it's in the world around you. So you put on this headset and you can see, like, oh, I have this window open with this website link, and I have this window open here with like iMessage, or I have this thing open with news, or this thing open with weather, and you can have like as many screens as you want. You can watch movies in screens that are bigger than what's physically possible, and you can also play VR games and stuff like that, like a virtual reality kind of thing. So it can do both AR and VR. From what I've heard, it seems like they did a pretty good job on the headset, which is great to see. I don't know, I just feel like there's just not a whole lot that I'm interested in with it. Like, I'm not a VR person, and honestly having AR for me is not enticing either, because I can do the same thing on my computer or on my phone or on my iPad or on my watch. It's just adding an extra device to my life that I really don't need. And it's just, for me, I'm just wondering, who's this for? If you buy this headset, I'm 99% sure that you probably own other Apple devices. Right now, maybe that would be the case. Maybe in the future, if it really does take off, it might be people's only Apple device. But right now, it's just, to me, it just doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. It just feels like we're like tumbling into like a virtual world where we have our main sense of reality, and then we have this virtual reality that I guess we're just expected to live with. It's cool, sure, but it's just weird to me. So yeah, I just don't think that it's an experience that most people are going to get their hands on, especially because like some of the older generations probably won't understand how to use the thing at all. And obviously they could learn, but I just don't think that they're going to want something like that. I think the tech is cool, and I think that it is like actually genuinely an awesome device, but there's just not a market for it. Yeah, that's my opinion on it anyways. Obviously, yours might be different. You might be really excited to get it. If that's the case, more power to you. I hope you really enjoy it. But for me, I just can't justify spending the money, and I also can't justify putting something over my head that would basically be like, oh, you wear this and then you can see your kids through it, and like you can record everything that they're doing in it. You can relive your memories. It's just like cool in practice, but you're kind of taking yourself out of reality by doing that, and honestly, that seems quite rude to me. So the way that the ad represented it, and I'm going to show it on the screen here, look at it. So yeah, I almost forgot about this because it's not very significant, but tvOS 17 actually got some features that is nice, but a lot of people don't know about this. FaceTime obviously came to the Apple TV. That's one of the more notable things that I picked up on. Control Center also came to Apple TV. Some other small features just kind of sprinkled around came over there, but FaceTime I would say would be one of the most significant ones. And it relies on continuity camera. It's the feature where it can basically use your phone's camera as the device's camera instead. The Apple TV HD does not support continuity camera, so it doesn't actually get FaceTime at all. It has the A8 chip. It makes sense that it's older, but it's just like, why? It's just mirroring a camera over. I feel like for a FaceTime call, it's fine. So yeah, that just doesn't make sense to me. So I'm going to assume that on the Apple TV HD, the FaceTime app is probably not even going to be installed. But yeah, I think that the Apple event was probably one of the biggest ones we've had in a while. I don't think that everything that was announced is going to be as game-changing and as like revolutionary as people say it is.